lecture we are going to start a new topic, that is radioisotope techniques, and in subsequent lectures we will be discussing different parts of this technique. Now, we are going to discuss in this particular topic the basic concepts, methods of detecting radioactivity, and these will be three methods, main three methods. One based on ionization of gases, where GM counters are used. Second, based on excitation of solids and liquids, where scintillation counters will be discussed. And third, exposure to the photographic film, that is autoradiography. We are also going to discuss about in brief radio immunoassay. Then we are going to discuss different applications of this technique and particularly safety aspects. Now, let us start with a brief introduction and then we will get into specifics. Radioisotope technique is an advanced technology which deals especially with the research of spatial property, preparation and application of radioisotopes on the basis of theory of nuclear physics, radiochemistry and related subjects. It is an important part of nuclear science and technology. Now, radioisotopes, what does radioisotope means? It refers to the isotopes of a particular element possessing radioactivity. Now, isotopes are nuclei having the same number of protons, but different number of neutrons. So, we will discuss this in detail a little later. Now, isotopes of an element have same characteristic atomic number. So, that means they have same number of protons in their atomic nuclei, but they have different mass number. So, these atoms are said to be containing unstable combinations of protons and neutrons. Now, if there is unstable atomic nuclei, it will spontaneously decompose to form a nuclei with higher stability. So, now this decomposition process where an unstable atomic nuclei decomposes to form a stable nuclei is called radioactivity. Now, the energy and the particles which are released during the decomposition process are called radiation. Now, when unstable nuclei decomposes in nature, the process is referred to as natural radioactivity. When the unstable nuclei are prepared in the laboratory, the decomposition is called induced radioactivity. So, there you can like you have in nature a lot of isotopes being radioisotopes or having radioactivity, but you can also prepare them synthetically. Now, radioisotopes are widely used in industry, medicine and scientific research and have been used to follow physical, chemical and biological processes almost from the time of their discovery. Probably the application with the biggest impact has been in the biological science, where radionuclides have been incorporated into biologically active molecules and have been used to diagnose a wide variety of diseases and also to treat many diseases. Other uses in the life sciences are related to using radioactive isotopes as markers for an existing species. There are many examples, like for example, nitrogen 13 is used in plant studies, or copper 67 to track copper catalysts in phytoplanktons. Likewise, tritium or 3H, sulfur 35 or iodine 125, all of them are used to label proteins. P32 or phosphorus 32 is widely used to label nucleic acids and phosphoproteins. Likewise, sodium, that is Na22 or chlorine 36 are used to study ion transport. Now, all these are very much utilized in biological sciences. Now, the advances in imaging technology in recent years has had a profound impact on the use of these radionuclide in say positron emission tomography or PET emission, and the coupling of other imaging modalities to provide very precise insights into human diseases. So, This is you can say a lot of different applications are there of radioisotope technique. Now, this technique also we call radio tracer technique. This allows extraordinarily sensitive detection of radioisotopically labeled samples. Now, it could go from 10 raised to power minus 6 mole to 10 raised to power minus 14 mole of substance being detected, whereas chemical detection the quantities are less than 10 raised to power minus 7 mole. So, you have much higher sensitivity of this particular technique. The use of radioactivity has led to the development of several experimental approaches. For example, double labeling methods, where you can analyze two substances simultaneously if you label them separately. This pulse chase method for following a substance at a time after its synthesis without interference of material concurrently synthesized. So, in pulse chase you can follow something which is synthesized at a particular time, and it will not be disturbed by concurrently synthesized material. There could be exchange analysis for measuring participation of substances in reactions. So, there could be whole lot of different methods which have been developed for for experimental approaches. Now, let us get little bit into history of radioisotopes or radioactivity. Now, radioactivity was discovered in 1896 by the French scientist Henri Becquerel while working on phosphorescent materials. Then Rutherford coined the term alpha ray and beta ray in 1899 to describe the two distinct type of radiation emitted by thorium and uranium. In 1903, Nobel Prize was awarded to Marie Curie for discovering radium and polonium. Later in 1923, Koster discovered the element hafnium. He made notable discoveries on the mobility of ions and isotope separation, and his work on radioisotope tracer, which has had an important biological applications, won him the Nobel for chemistry in 1943. In 1948, scientists discovered that gamma rays could be detected using photomultiplier tube. In 1950s, pharmaceuticals labeled with radioactivity were developed that allowed the study of organs, many organs including the heart, liver, kidney and bone. Now, the invention of the gamma scintillation camera by American engineer Hal Anger in the 1950s brought major advances in nuclear medical imaging and rapidly elevated the use of radioisotopes in medicines. So, there are a lot of advancement has taken since then, and you can go on in the history. So, this was brief history about the radioactivity or radioisotopes being used in different areas of in life sciences and other sciences. Now, let us get into the specifics, the basic concepts of radioisotopes or radioactivity. The nature of radioactivity. Now, nature of radioactivity, as we said, that there are unstable isotopes. So, before we get into that, let us see the atom structure or atomic structure and atomic stability. Now, an atom is the smallest particle of an element. Now, atom, it is made up of what? It is made up of a positively charged nucleus surrounded by a cloud of negatively charged electrons. The number of protons equals the number of electrons, as the atom as a whole is electrically neutral. Now, the number of protons in the nucleus of the atom is the characteristic value of an element, and the number is defined as atomic number. In addition to protons, atomic nuclei also contains neutrons, that is uncharged particles with a mass approximately equal to that of proton. Now, the sum of the proton and neutron in a particular nuclei is known as mass number. So, now, if you have atoms of same element having different mass number, that is different number of neutrons, they are known as isotopes. Now, the number of isotopes of an element can vary. For example, there could be 3 isotopes of hydrogen there are 7 of carbon and 20 or more for elements of high atomic number. Now, before we go into the atomic stability, we will just little bit try to understand the atomic structure on your screen here. Let us little bit understand this atomic structure before we move on to the next label here, that is atomic stability. So, like I said that an atom is made up of a positively charged nuclei with surrounding electrons. So, what you have is essentially that you have a nucleus which is central part and it is the heaviest part of the an atom, and then you will have surrounding electrons which are distributed in different orbitals. So, this nucleus, this contains protons plus neutrons actually, and these are electrons which are present in the different orbitals. So, what you have is mostly the proton number and the electron number is same. So, the positively charged nuclei has equal number of negatively charged electrons. So, it is electrically neutral. Now, the atomic weight of an atom is given by, that is atomic mass is given by the two things, which is number of neutrons and number of protons. Z is number, it is atomic number. So, number of protons means the atomic number and it is a characteristic value of a particular atom. Now, to take you further, when we say this, you can mostly denote, for convenience, we denote a particular atom by, say, if we have to denote carbon, we will be denoting it with a single letter C, or oxygen by O, or nitrogen by N. Now, this C will represent, there will be a subscript and superscript. Subscript will say that it has a particular proton number or atomic number, I would say, and superscript will give you what is the atomic mass of that particular atom. So, if I say carbon, it is a 12 is the atomic mass and 6 the protons. You can find out what is the neutron number by simply calculating or substituting the value after subtracting it from the atomic number from the atomic mass. Now, there could be, like I said, there could be many isotopes of a particular atom. Again, before that, for convenience, mostly like there could be a lot of things, like you can write this as C614, these are different isotopes, or otherwise. Now, most of the time for convenience we represent this as simply by the atomic mass here rather than writing atomic number, as we consider atomic number is same for each isotope here. So, what you have is you have different number of different atomic mass, but the same atomic number that will characterize the particular atom. So, atomic number has to remain the same. So, I hope you have been able to understand a simple atomic structure here. Now, let us get back to our continue our discussion here. So, we are saying the atoms of same element having different mass number, that is different number of neutrons, they are known as isotopes, and the number of isotopes of an element can vary. That could be 1, 2, 3 or many of them for higher elements of high atomic number. Now, these neutrons and protons constituting the nuclei and surrounding electrons of an atom are governed by various forces which keeps the atom together. Now, the force of repulsion between the protons, because protons are positively charged and like charges repel each other in electromagnetic field. This is overcome by a strong force that holds the nucleus together, and the energy associated with this force is known as binding energy. So, there is a force which keeps the nucleus together, although you have protons of the same charge clustered in the nuclei. Now, there are also neutrons in the nuclei which kind of are present in there, they are electrically neutral. Now, in stable atoms binding energy is large enough to hold the nucleus together, but this is different in unstable atom, where what happens is that the binding energy is not large enough to hold the nucleus together. So, what happens? Unstable nuclei of an atom constantly change, and they will lose protons or neutrons or electromagnetic radiation in order to become stable. Now, these are called radioactive atoms, and the phenomenon is known as radioactivity. So, what is radioactivity? It is a release of energy or matter or energy and matter resulting from changes in the nucleus of an atom. Now, the radioactive decay is a spontaneous process and can be caused by the forces within the nuclei. So, it is not like from outside it is induced, it is within the nucleus that forces are causing this, and this is completely spontaneous process. Now, this disturbances could be different, like electrostatic forces or weak nuclear forces or arbitrarily small disturbances from quantum vacuum fluctuation. That is hard to say, but the process is spontaneous in itself. Now, so ratio of neutrons. So, here we are again coming why it could be unstable. The ratio of neutrons to protons in the nucleus determines whether an isotope of a given element is stable enough to exist in nature or not. Now, most stable isotopes are those where an element tend to have an equal number of neutrons and protons. Now, unstable isotopes, also known as radioisotope or radionuclide, they emit particles and or electromagnetic radiation as a result of change in the composition of the atomic nucleus. So, these unstable isotopes, they contain an unstable combination of neutrons and protons. Now, all elements with atomic number which are at high atomic number, say above 83 or so, are radioisotopes, and elements with atomic number will have they have mostly they are radioisotopes, and the atoms or elements with smaller atomic number would at least have one or more radioisotope. Now, when a radioisotope tries to stabilize by emitting energy or matter, it may transform itself into a new element. Remember that the atomic number is the characteristic value of a particular atom. So, if atomic number changes, so is the character of the atom. So, if there is certain emission which leads to the change in atomic number, then it will transform itself into a new element, and this process is known as transmutation. Radionuclide occurs naturally and can also be produced artificially by nuclear reactors. Now, there could be nuclear reactors, particle accelerators like cyclotron, or by radionuclide generators. So, that could be both, there could be natural as well as artificial for different application. Let us little bit see what are different kinds of radionuclide or radioisotopes. Now, a radionuclide, an atom with unstable nucleus, is characterized by an excess energy and undergoes radioactive decay to emit radiation in the form of subatomic particle or gamma rays. Now, they occur naturally and can be produced artificially. Now, there are three types of naturally occurring radionuclides. They are primordial, secondary and cosmogenic. So, radionuclides which are primordial, these ones originate from interiors of star. For example, uranium and thorium, which have originated from interior of stars and with very long half life. So, we will discuss what is half life in a little while. Then there are secondary radionuclides, and these radionuclides are radiogenic isotopes, and they are derived from the decay of primordial radionuclides. So, what you have? They have shorter half life. So, they have come from primordial ones, and they have shorter half life than the primordial radionuclides. Remember, primordial radionuclides have very long half life. And then there are third one, that is cosmogenic radionuclides, and are being formed continuously in the atmosphere due to cosmic rays. For example, carbon 14 is being formed because of that. So, artificially radionuclides can be produced by nuclear reactors, which, like for example, thallium has been produced from nuclear reactors, or iridium. They could be produced by particle accelerators like cyclotron, for example, fluorine 18, or by radionuclide generators, which is technetium 99M generator used in nuclear medicine. Now, the parent produced in nuclear reactor is molybdenum 99. So, you have different examples where you could produce, there are natural radioactive isotopes or artificially produced radioisotopes or radionuclides. All right. So, this was little bit about the atomic structure and atomic stability. All right. Let us get into which are different types of radioactive decay. Like we were saying, radioactivity is something where matter like subatomic particles or electromagnetic radiations are emitted. So, to become or to acquire stability. So, what are these different types of radioactive decay actually? Now, radioactive decay is a process where loss of energy by emission of ionizing radiation occurs from an unstable nucleus of an atom. Here, an unstable nucleus of an atom called the parent radionuclide transforms to an atom with a different nucleus in a different state or a different nucleus, either of which is named daughter nuclide. Now, often the parent and daughter are different chemical elements. So, in such cases the decay process results in nuclear transmutation. Now, let us get into the different types of decays, and we are discussing few important types of decays here. And before we go into the details, let us try to understand them a little bit here on your screen. So, decay by alpha particle emission, there could be decay by negatron emission, there could be decay by positron emission, and there could be decay by emission of gamma rays. Let us see what are these on your screen. Let us see what is different types of radioisotope decay here. Now, like I said, there could be decay by different types of subatomic particles. So, there could be negatron decay by negatron emission. Now, negatron emission, when we say, then it is a simple negatively charged particle, beta particle or electron, and it is called negatron because it has a nuclear origin. Let us see how it is produced. So, if you have a neutron, in this particular case neutron is converted to proton and plus a beta particle, that is an electron, and we call it negatron, of course. Now, if I have to take one example of this particular one, this is very simple example is where C14 or carbon 14 is converted to plus. So, what you have is, what you have converted this 14C, if you can see here the atomic number has changed. It is 6, carbon has 6 atomic number, whereas nitrogen has 7, and this has been formed because neutron has been converted to a proton. So, there could be emission by negatron emission, there could be decay by negatron emission. Now, if it is a second one, there could be decay by positron emission. Now, positron is just opposite to negatron, like beta particle which is positively charged rather than negatively charged. Now, what happens here in this particular one, rather than neutron being converted to proton, it is proton which is converted to neutron, plus a positively charged particle or beta particle, as you can say. For example, there could be one example like sodium being converted to, so here you can see the atomic number has decreased actually, and you have a positively charged particle. Now we'll discuss this in detail, what happens to this positron as such. Then there could be third one, and which is decay by uh, alpha emission. So that is alpha particle emission. Now alpha particle is it carries a particular weight. It's a helium nucleus and doubly positive charge actually. So here you can say that it's not as light as beta particle, and here you will change the atomic number by 2 and the mass number by 4. For example, if you have a radium which has atomic number of 88 and the atomic mass of 226, then it is converted to a helium nucleus or alpha particle, which is with 2 atomic number and 4 atomic mass, and it is, like I said, doubly charged. Plus subsequent, like radon is created, which is with 2 atomic number less and the 4 atomic mass less. So now this is like a series actually, which will be carried on till a stable nuclei is formed, and which is formed at the end. It is somewhere around it is formed when lead is formed, 206 Pb is formed. So alpha particle emission is another one. Now there could be other ones also, like by electron capture and other. We'll go on discussing them as we go along. I hope you have been able to understand there could be different types of radioactive decay, and like I said, it could be decay by alpha particle emission, decay by negatron emission, decay by positron emission, or decay by emission of gamma rays. Now let us discuss each of these in little detail. So let us discuss first alpha decay. Now alpha decay is observed in isotopes of heavier elements, which is like atomic number to say approximately 52 or greater actually. Now many times a complex decay series by alpha emission results till formation of a stable isotope of a new element, like I showed you in a little bit earlier. For example, radium, like where radium is it decays by alpha emission, and it will decay to radon, and subsequently radon will decay and finally to lead actually, till it gets stable nuclei. So that is a heavy atom, or you can say it is a heavy nuclei. Now reason alpha decay occurs is because the nucleus has too many protons, which causes excessive repulsion, and in an attempt to reduce the repulsion, a helium nucleus is emitted. Now emission of alpha particle results in a considerable lightening of the nucleus, that is decreasing in atomic number of 2 and decrease in mass number of 4. So it is like if you compare the two, one which is the original parent and daughter, they have lot of difference in terms of atomic mass and atomic number. Now alpha emitters are not frequently used for biological work. We will discuss later on this. Alpha emitters are extremely toxic, and if ingested due to large mass and ionizing power. So these are these are toxic entities. Now this is one example where we have shown here in the figure that this is you can say protons and neutrons, and you can say there are large number of protons and as such, and there are neutrons here. Now this particular one Am 241, that is americium 241, changes to neptunium 237 with the emission of alpha particle. All right. So this is like a typical representation of how alpha particle emission is taking place. So, this was about how alpha decay takes place. Now, let us move on to negatron emission or beta decay. Now, decay by negatron emission is very important and it is used frequently in biology. Now, this occurs when the neutron to proton ratio is too high in the nucleus and it causes instability. Now, neutron is converted to a proton by the ejection of a negatively charged beta particle. It is called negatron for its nuclear origin. So, neutron converted to proton plus negatron. Now, here neutron to atomic number ratio decreases, like I showed you that atomic number increases by 1. So, ratio decreases, but mass number remains the same here. Now, radioisotopes emitting beta particles are frequently used in biological work, and a few examples if we say like 32P is the beta emitter, carbon 14 is a beta emitter, 3H is a beta emitter, 35S is a beta emitter, and there could be many more examples here. This is a typical this is a figure which shows beta emission. You can see there are 2 neutrons and 1 proton, and now here the one of the neutrons is converted to proton. So, there are 2 protons here. So, your atomic number has increased and there will be emission of a negative electron or beta particle. So, this was about the emission by or decay by negatron emission. Now, let us see the decay by positron emission. Now, the positron emission occurs when the neutron to proton ratio is too small. So, proton will turn into neutron here, and the positron is emitted, which is basically a positively charged electron, a positively charged particle opposite to the negatron. So, here what will happen? Proton is converted to neutron and positron, and so the ratio, that is n by z ratio, increases and atomic number decreases by 1 and mass number will be remaining constant. Now, positrons are extremely unstable and have only transient existence. So, what happens? Once they have dissipated their energy, they interact with electrons and are annihilated. Now, the mass and energy of the 2 particles is converted to 2 gamma rays emitted at 180 degrees to each other, and this phenomenon is known as back to back emission phenomenon. Now, positron emission is used in biological sciences in brain scanning technique. This technique is called positron emission tomography or PET scanning. So, this is quite useful for medical science. If you see here figure which shows the positron emission, if you can see here there are number of protons and neutrons, and number of protons decreases here, and there is a emission of positron or positively charged particle. So, C11 is converted to B11 here, that is carbon 11 to beryllium 11. Now, let us see decay by electron capture. This is another characteristic decay where X-rays are generated. Now, if you see, it occurs when the neutron to proton ratio in the nucleus is too small, and so what happens that when the ratio is too small, the nucleus captures an electron from K or L electronic shell, which basically turns a proton into a neutron, that is proton plus electron is converted to neutron plus X-rays. Let me show you this on screen. So, you have proton plus neutron in here, and you have say K or L shell containing the electrons. Now, in this particular case where X-rays are generated, this one will take, this will be taken up in here, and then the like you can say electron is captured in here, and then generation of X-rays will takes place in this particular case. So, this is another way what you call of decay here. Let us see this in here also. Now, here beryllium 7, this is one example what I showed you. This is beryllium 7, where this particular electron is taken up by the nucleus and it is converted. So, proton, so like I showed you, proton plus electron is taken to neutron plus X rays. So, what happens here, that your proton, one proton is less, a neutron is generated, and electron, the X rays are generated in this particular case here. All right. Now, let us move on to the last one of the decay, that is decay by emission of gamma rays. Now, this particular one involves electromagnetic radiation rather than alpha or beta particles. So, here in essence gamma rays do not carry any charge or mass. So, there should not be any change in charge or mass, rather it is a electromagnetic radiation. Now, this occurs because the nucleus is in excited state at high energy level and falls to the lower energy state by emitting high energy photons known as gamma particles. Now, gamma ray emission is frequently accompanied by alpha or beta particle emission. So, it might like change the atom. Now, emission of, or may not, emission of gamma radiation in itself does not change atomic mass or atomic number, because it does not carry any mass or charge. Gamma radiation has very low ionizing power, but they are highly penetrating because of their speed. Now, this is typical figure where He3 is in higher state, and when it comes back it emits a gamma radiation of photon. Now, if we so if you go around, it is like what we have discussed in here. There are 4 different types of decays we have discussed. There could be lot of other kinds of decays also, which we are not going into detail, but what we have discussed here is, one, there is a decay by negatron emission, positron emission, alpha particle and gamma radiation, and then also one we have electron capture where X rays are generated actually. Now, all these decays are due to the instability of the atom, of the atomic nucleus, because of which is neutron to proton ratios are typical. Certain times it is low or sometimes it is high, but like I said, if it is kind of equal, that is more stable atom. If they are not, then it is a what you call unstable radionuclide is created in this particular case. So, let us move on. So, this was about different types of decays. Now, let us move on to what are decay energy and units of radioactivity. Radioactive decay energy will be expressed in terms of electron volt. Now, 1 electron volt is defined as the energy acquired by 1 electron in accelerating through a potential difference of 1 volt, or you can say work done on an electron in moving it through a potential difference of 1 volt. Now, 1 electron volt refers to a very small amount of energy, and it equals only 1.6 into 10 raised to power minus 19 joule. For majority of isotopes, the term million or mega electron volt is used or more applicable, and like for example, alpha emitters have decay energy in the range of 4 to 8 million electron volt, while beta and gamma emitters will generally have decay energy somewhere less than 3 million electron volt. So, you have like you have to use a higher you have to use what you call electron volts in terms of say higher number, which is mega, or you can call it million electron volt, rather than simple electron volt. Now, for a particular beta emitter, beta particles are emitted in a continuous range of energy from say 0 to a maximum value, which is E max. So, you have beta particles which could be emitted in a very small with a very small energy and to a very large energy, and there will be a mean where you can say have a plot of relative probability of emission of a beta particle as a function of energy, and this is called beta spectrum. If you consider the gamma radiations, like I said, they are less than 3 million electron volts, but they will also range somewhere around from 10,000 electron volts to 10 million electron volts actually. So, in this lecture we have tried to discuss some of the basic concepts, which is the nature of radioactivity, how the particular atom or is stable or unstable, and how that unstable atom by different types of decay, which could be electromagnetic radiation or subatomic particles, tries to become stable. We have discussed about alpha decay, we have discussed about negatron decay, we have discussed about positron decay, and we have discussed about the gamma radiation decay. In the subsequent lecture, we will be discussing about, like we were talking about the beta spectrum, we will discuss about the beta spectrum, and we will discuss about the interaction of the radioactivity with matter and other different aspects of radioactivity. Before starting, like I said, 3 methods which we are going to discuss, and so today we will end this lecture here. Thank you.